In this week's Global Mobilities unit, we are going to be talking about global governance. In the last 3 weeks of class, we're talking about things that are mobile in a global world. Things like governance, how people are administering rules and regulations all over the world. Mobile capital, meaning corporations and money, and the mobilities of people. And the secret is they're all connected to each other. Vreeland's reading of the Intermonetary Fund really focuses on the IMF. Global governance institutions include the Intermonetary Fund, the World Bank, the World Trade Organization. These international and transnational, meaning communicating across nations, these organizations work together to regulate finances, economics, labor, and politics all over the world. You could think of the IMF as a credit union. If you're not part of a credit union, you should be. Anyway, if you have a bank account, a credit union basically is a bank that pools in resources and money from various different companies. And in the Intermonetary Fund, they're pooling in different resources from different countries to put into that credit union, so that credit union can then loan out money to countries that are in need of resources and capital. The people who are contributing to the Intermonetary Fund are often the most powerful countries all over the world because they have the kind of funds to put into the resource pool of the IMF, which means most of the countries that put in their resources to the IMF are some of the most powerful countries in the world, including the US, Canada, countries in Europe, China, and Japan. When the Intermonetary Fund decides who gets a loan, they are sort of offering an insurance against economic crisis to countries who are at the brink of economic bankruptcy. So they offer a loan, which is supposed to stabilize that country's economy. But that loan is tethered to something called conditionalities. And that conditionality is, if I lend you this money, you got to spend it under these conditions. The whole idea is that the loan's supposed to stabilize the economy, and the conditionalities are supposed to promote the kind of growth, economic growth, that will guarantee that country will pay back that money. Conditionalities under the IMF are things like addressing what type of expenditures the government has to spend the money on. They determine if a road versus a school is the priority. It determines the interest rates in which people can take out, small businesses can take out loans from the government. And most importantly, it values national currency against more powerful other currencies. So for example, the Philippine peso, it's like, something like 60 pesos to $1, to $1, right? And so the IMF also ensures that, those countries' currency isn't inflated. But the rub is some of the scholars that Vreeland has reviewed in his chapter says that many of the IMF programs sound good, giving loans to stabilize economy and conditions to promote growth, but oftentimes they don't promote economic growth. Two examples from the reading is that oftentimes these particular conditionalities don't prioritize the nation's goals, right? What if the nation said, we really want to work on education in schools and making that free? The IMF conditionalities say, no, you got to create roads instead. So it kind of works in contradiction with one another. Another example that he uses in the chapter is that oftentimes IMF loans go to benefit corporate owners and employers rather than the workers, who are often in more need of economic help than the people who own the plantations or the factories that they work at. So there are these two sort of ways in which the IMF, um, as a global governing organization, has good theories behind it and good intentions, and then there's the reality of it. In this week's documentary Life and Debt, you'll see how the IMF and the World Bank come together to produce these kinds of contradictions in Jamaica. And in your flip grid, I'd like for you to reflect on that contradiction. Until next time.